The tale of redemption is drawing near its conclusion, with the protagonists basking in their happiness together. My own heart is filled with joy alongside the deeply affectionate second male lead, whom I had ensnared through various means. However, one fateful day, I inadvertently shattered an old music box belonging to my husband. Instantly, my 5-year-old son's expression darkened. He donned his little backpack and scampered towards the door. I hurriedly attempted to stop him. Pouting, he declared, "Mommy, you're in trouble. You broke the music box that Daddy's first love gave him. He will surely hold you accountable upon his return." I scoffed, my face a mask of disbelief. He continued, "Do not doubt me, I am no longer that naive. Sweet child, I am now Nyo Hulugu, reborn, and I have dined 5 more years than you, my dear mommy. In my previous life, it was indeed this music box that caused a fierce argument between Daddy and you. In your fury, you stormed out and met with a tragic accident, leaving him utterly devoted to his first love, neglecting my needs, and I was left to perish as a filthy little beggar beneath a bridge. Thus, this time, I must be wise and flee before the storm." With that, his chubby little legs took a step forward, nearly losing his balance under the weight of his heavy backpack. My instinct was to reach out, but my sharp eyes caught sight of the zipper on his backpack, which was not fully secured, revealing a glimpse of something red within. My expression grew serious. As I had surmised, the bag was filled with property deeds and a significant sum of cash. I placed my hands on my hips in irritation. "Gu Xiangxiang, have you had too much to eat today? How dare you take the property deeds from our home? Just wait until your father returns, I shall certainly tell him." I was infuriated, unable to suppress a mutter under my breath. What does a child who can barely read know about rebirth? Children often indulge in fanciful tales, claiming that their teachers at kindergarten poisoned them while they alone survived, as the other children succumbed. Coincidentally, at that moment, I stumbled upon a video on XHS. The notion of poisoning was absurd. He simply hadn't eaten lunch, while the other children napped, and he was merely playing pranks. I paid his whimsical words no mind, locking the property deeds safely in the safe, and giving him a thorough lesson. As evening approached, Gu Yanli returned home. I, as per usual, playfully requested a hug, then helped him out of his suit, engaging in our customary banter. "Darling, the bathwater is ready." He gently kissed my cheek, responding, "Thank you, my dear wife, as always." He departed to bathe while I tidied his pockets. I thought of my mischievous little one, who often enjoyed playing tricks, and thus slipped some frightful toys into Gu Yanli's pocket. Sure enough, a fake snake was soon extracted from the pocket of his suit. I cast a disdainful glance towards the children's room. TCH, such childish interests, even after a rebirth. I removed the fake snake and took out my phone. Just as I placed my phone on the coffee table, the previously dark screen suddenly illuminated, revealing a new notification. "Brother, I want a divorce. Can you help me?" Sender. Gu Wanwan. I was taken aback, my gaze lingering in the direction of the bathroom. 2. Gu Wanwan is the adopted daughter of the Gu family and the bold, passionate heroine of this narrative. Over the years, I have cunningly manipulated Gu Yanli, and she finally married the male protagonist last month after a tumultuous love-hate relationship. And now, merely a month into their marriage, they are contemplating divorce? I sat in silence on the sofa, taken aback, as I had not heard of any subsequent dramas involving the leads. Suddenly, I recalled the words my son had uttered earlier in the day, and my thoughts drifted to the music box. I swiftly rose to rummage through the trash can for today, as refuse. After a considerable search, I finally unearthed the music box. Typically, such a token of affection bears a name inscribed on the bottom or elsewhere. After scrutinizing it for a while, I finally spotted the signature in the corner on the left. Wanwan. This unexpected revelation left me in a daze, oblivious to the presence of someone behind me. "Wife, what are you doing rummaging through the trash?" I jumped in surprise, causing the item to slip from my grasp, and turned around in astonishment. Gu Yanli's gaze lingered on the music box for a brief moment before he enveloped me in his arms, his voice melodious and soothing. "Wife, are you unwell? It's my fault for working overtime lately and neglecting you and our son. My workload is easing up, and you've mentioned wanting to see the Aurora, right? Next Monday, the kindergarten will be on break. We can take Xiangxiang along." His tone grew increasingly tender. I was momentarily taken aback. Then I presented the music box before him, sincerely apologizing. "I'm so sorry, husband. While I was tidying your study today, I accidentally broke something of yours." It truly was an accident. Yet, I discreetly observed his expression. He glanced at the music box without a hint of concern, shook his head, and muttered that it was nothing. After taking it from my hands, he tossed it back into the trash can. He had a meeting to attend. Seizing the opportunity while he was engaged in his conference, I quietly slipped into the children's room. Gu Xiangxiang, engrossed in his toys, turned to glance at me, huffed in annoyance, and resumed playing. I eagerly placed a new toy before him, feigning a smile as I praised, "Wow, Xiangxiang, are you playing with a little rabbit? It's utterly adorable. No wonder you're my son. You truly have a talent for drawing." Xiangxiang shot me a sidelong glance and, mirroring his father's stoic demeanor, replied, "That's a little mouse." My smile faltered, and after an awkward chuckle, I unwrapped his new toy, a complete set of Ultraman Tiga. I solemnly informed him, "What's this? Are you still upset with mommy? You don't even believe in light? Children who doubt light are not well behaved." Xiangxiang remained impassive, though his little eyes occasionally darted toward Tiga. Before long, he capitulated, playing with his new toy and shifting his little chubby legs to create space for me to sit. As soon as I settled, I began inquiring about the events of the day. Xiangxiang pouted. "Oh, didn't you say you didn't believe in this baby? Now you're asking what this baby has to say? I'm just a 5-year-old child who can't even recognize all the characters. How can you trust what I say?" He articulated his thoughts with remarkable coherence. I was momentarily taken aback, quickly realizing he was echoing my words from earlier. That stubborn temperament of his certainly resembles that of his father. 3. When Gu Yanli returned to the bedroom, I was engrossed in a search for novels on Tomato, seeking stories about babies reincarnating. After a lengthy search, I finally stumbled upon a few titles. Just as I was reading, I caught sight of Gu Yanli attempting to seduce me. He had shed his shirt, revealing his chiseled 8-pack abs. I wiped away the drool escaping my lips, a serious expression overtaking my face as I turned away, stating, "What are you doing? I still have matters to discuss with you. Put your clothes back on. Today." Gu Yanli was unusually fervent, quickly stirring my emotions. Before long, my senses began to blur, and just as he opened the wardrobe to retrieve a small box, an unexpected phone call interrupted the ambience, ringing out in the sultriness of the night. I blushed, gently pushing him away. Gu Yanli's expression soured as he stood to answer the phone. Upon seeing the caller ID, his demeanor shifted, momentarily stunned. Realizing something was amiss, I hastily leaned closer to the phone. It was Gu Wanwan calling. As soon as the line connected, her sobbing voice came through, breathless and distraught. Her tears were heart-wrenching, and I instinctively glanced at Gu Yanli. His expression remained unchanged, though he fell silent for a few seconds before asking, "Where are you now?" Gu Wanwan sniffled and choked out, "I'm at the CAF near my university that you used to visit often." "Brother, could you come quickly? I'm feeling a bit scared." He responded with a non-committal and, upon hanging up, turned to look at me. I waved my hand dismissively, smiling as I said, "It's fine, go ahead. It's unsafe for her to be out alone at this hour." I lay down, pretending nothing had occurred, and resumed my attempt to sleep. Before long, I could hear the rustling of clothes being put on. A pang of heartache struck me. Even after all these years of marriage, there still remained a place in Gu Yanli's heart for the heroine. Just as I began to contemplate how to contest for custody, my body was suddenly lifted. I was taken aback, instinctively wrapping my arms around the man's neck. As he dressed me, he explained, "I can't leave you alone at home. It makes me uneasy." Before stepping out, he draped a khaki trench coat over me, a matching piece to his own. For, upon seeing me, Gu Wanwan was visibly shocked, her anger flaring as she questioned, "Vixen, why are you here when I called my brother?" I blinked, taken aback. Is this truly the leading lady of the story? She dares to label a law-abiding citizen a vixen? She seemed poised to unleash further insults when Gu Yanli interrupted coldly, "Gu Wanwan, she is your sister-in-law." He emanated an icy aura, clearly displeased. My lips curled into a smirk. Gu Wanwan fell momentarily silent, her shock evident as she looked at her brother, who had never raised his voice to her before, now treating her this way for another woman. She wished to weep, but quickly remembered her purpose. She rushed into Gu Yanli's embrace, sobbing, "Brother, I don't want to marry Xin Shaoqing anymore. I regret it." Gu Yanli's hand, which had been suspended in the air, hesitated for a moment. Seeing her truly distressed, he tentatively patted her back. As he did, Gu Wanwan clung to him even tighter. Jealousy surged within me, and I glared at Gu Yanli. It was only when they finally released each other that I allowed a smile to break through. Gu Wanwan continued to cry, tears flowing freely. Her relationship with the male protagonist had been progressing quite well, so I couldn't help but inquire naively. "So, what exactly happened between you and Xin Shaoqing? Is it that he no longer loves you, or you no longer love him?" To reach the point of divorce, it typically implied that one party had lost their affection. She halted her tears, glaring at me in frustration. What is it to you? After that, she turned to Gu Yanli, sweetly asking, Brother, our parents are still angry with me. Can I come home with you? If you don't take me in, I'll truly be homeless. She gazed at Gu Yanli with tearful eyes. He had always been her most doting brother. It's not very convenient. Gu Yanli declined without a second thought. Upon hearing those 4 words, I quietly commended myself. Throughout the years of our marriage, I had not been lacking. At the outset, he declared me to be his girlfriend, stating that I was the one destined to share his life and accompany him through the years. While outsiders merely regarded him as a disposable tool, he understood that I was referring to Gu Wanwan, though I paid her no mind. As thoughts of marriage and impending motherhood occupied my mind, I daily reminded myself that my son and I were the most significant individuals in his life, whereas others were merely transient figures. In retrospect, this strategy proved quite effective. Gu Wanwan's expression froze, seemingly caught off guard, and she immediately accused me. Is it you? This woman, who has incited my brother? You are truly malicious. I've known my brother for decades, while you have only known him for a few years. Upon hearing this, I merely scoffed, dismissive of her words. Sister, you have known him for just over 20 years. I am meant to be by his side for a lifetime. Can you truly compare? Though I refrained from voicing this thought, I was wary of her volatile temperament. I feared that in a fit of rage, she might attempt to harm me. Ultimately, Gu Yanli devised a temporary solution, securing her a room at a 5-star hotel, with the promise that we would address other matters the following day. On our way home, Gu Yanli drove while I idly played a game on his phone. Just as I was engrossed in the game, a new message popped up. Brother, I feel that Yi Jinchao is somewhat targeting me. Could you divorce her? Yi Jinchao is the name I bear in this world. I silently regarded the man who was focused on driving. What's wrong? He inquired, sensing my gaze. Instinctively, I considered showing him the message, but in the next moment, it was retracted. All he could see was a screen indicating a message had been withdrawn. He pressed. What did she send? Nothing, I replied, reclaiming my phone and returning to the game. While I appeared absorbed in my phone, my mind was preoccupied with Gu Wanwan's words. In Gu Yanli's eyes, she was merely a spoiled heiress throwing a tantrum. Her earlier rude remarks were simply the result of her foul mood. After glancing at her a few times, he remained silent. The following morning, Gu Wanwan stormed into the Gu residence, laden with bags, commanding the housekeeper with an air of authority. Wang Ma, please take my luggage to the room on the far left of the 2nd floor. Wang Ma, I'm hungry. Once you've put away the luggage, please prepare breakfast for me. After bossing her around for a while, she finally noticed me, who had been awakened by the commotion. I wore a cold expression, appearing half asleep. She huffed disdainfully and turned on the television, plopping down on the sofa with a bag of seeds. When Gu Yanli emerged from his morning routine and caught sight of my darkened face, he instinctively leaned in to kiss me and soothe my mood. I turned my head away, reminding him, you should check on your dear sister. I rarely lost my temper, but after the events of the previous night, I had barely slept for 4 hours. It was now just past 7 in the morning. He paused, finally noticing Gu Wanwan on the sofa. She immediately recognized him, pouting angrily as she ascended the stairs and recounted the events that had transpired after our departure. In summary, Shin Xiaoqing had found her and attempted to forcibly take her back to that dilapidated house. Had the security not intervened yesterday, she would have been taken away. She lamented, Brother, the hotel isn't safe and our parents won't let me back home, so I can only come here. Her sincerity was evident, yet she didn't spare a glance in my direction. The commotion drew our son from his room, still drowsy. Upon seeing Gu Wanwan, his eyes widened, and he let out a shriek, crying, Wow, it's the white moonlight. She's here, and she's brought her suitcase. Mommy, I told you yesterday that we should leave early, but you didn't believe me. Now look, we're about to be kicked out and become beggars. He was furious, attributing the failure of our escape to me. Gu Yanli frowned, clearly confused. Gu Wanwan, too, was bewildered, but upon hearing the term white moonlight, she understood it was a reference to herself. Online, it was said that those who were loved but unattainable were the white moonlight. Thus, in her brother's heart, she was that very figure. She straightened her posture, defiantly regarding me. I quickly covered my son's mouth and whispered, You're just sleepy, darling. Let us go wash up. Once in the bathroom, I feigned anger and questioned my dear son. Have you forgotten what Mommy told you yesterday? He pouted, recalling my words, and muttered, Can we eat yesterday's food again today? My head throbbed with frustration. After a moment, I squatted down to patiently remind him, remember, you and I are the most important people in your father's life. That so-called white moonlight is merely a thing of the past. As you said, I had a big fight with Daddy over the music box, which led to the accident. But yesterday I discussed the music box with him and we didn't fight, so we won't end up as unwanted beggars. Do you understand? After all, he was still a child, and I did not expect him to grasp everything. He nodded, albeit somewhat dazed, but I was satisfied as long as he remembered that he and I were the most significant people in Daddy's life. I nodded approvingly and, after freshening up, took him outside. Gu Yanli was already searching for a new hotel, but Gu Wanwan vehemently disagreed, raising her voice in protest. Upon seeing me, she pointed an accusing finger and demanded, "Tell me, is it because of this woman that you're treating me this way? Brother, we are family. Why would you treat me so poorly for this wicked woman?" She was on the verge of tears. I frowned, my disdain evident. Surely this wasn't the bold, passionate script of a leading lady, but rather that of a pampered wife. Gu Yanli's expression darkened as he struggled to contain his temper and reminded her, "Gu Wanwan, have I ever asked you to call me brother? If you refuse to acknowledge the sister-in-law, then there's no need to call me brother either." He was visibly upset, having reiterated this several times since yesterday. A young lady's tantrum should, after all, have their limits. I flashed our son a proud smile and approached him, sweetly saying, "Darling, it's all right. I'm younger than Wanwan, so it's understandable that she doesn't want to call me sister-in-law." Her sobs ceased as she glared at me, wanting to reprimand me, but under the weight of a cold stare, she reluctantly addressed me, "Sister-in-law." "What?" I feigned not hearing her clearly and leaned in closer. Her anger flared further, and she glared at her brother. Gu Yanli remained impassive, raising an eyebrow as if urging her to repeat herself. Left with no choice, she raised her voice, "Sister-in-law." I feigned surprise, chuckling with delight. Gu Yanli, now actively searching for a new hotel, specifically instructed the front desk to ensure the security system was impeccable. Suddenly, the woman seated quietly on the sofa raised her head and said, "Brother, take me home." To avoid any misunderstanding, she added, "I mean the old house. Will you accompany me? I wish to apologize to Mom and Dad." This plot development seemed rather swift. Ordinarily, one would expect Gu Wanwan to experience a difficult childbirth, crying out for her mother, and only then reconciling her relationship with the Gu family. It was only after becoming a mother herself that Gu Wanwan would understand the affection her adoptive mother held for her, ultimately leading to a heartfelt apology and forgiveness. Gu Yanli paused for a few seconds in silence before turning to go upstairs to change his clothes, signaling his tacit agreement. Meanwhile, the elders of the Gu family learned that their beloved grandson was coming to visit. They beamed with joy, unable to contain their smiles, and frequently sent servants to check if he had arrived. When we finally arrived at the doorstep, the family servant, upon seeing the young master, beamed with delight. However, upon spotting another figure emerging from the back seat, she was so startled that she hurried into the old residence. Upon noticing the servant, Madame Gu joyfully inquired, "Is it that Xiang Xiang has come?" As she spoke, she began to rise. Mr. Gu also set aside his newspaper. Yet just as they took a step forward, the servant could not restrain herself and blurted out, "Sir, Madam, the young lady has returned as well." Naturally, they understood whom she referred to. Both halted abruptly, their cheerful expressions vanishing entirely. As I entered, I was met by the once smiling faces of my grandparents, now darkened with displeasure. Even when Xiang Xiang rushed forward, sweetly calling out to her grandparents, they merely managed a gentle smile. Gu Wanwan was hiding behind Gu Yanli. However, upon entering, she promptly knelt down. Her tears, quite valueless at this moment, fell like a cascade of precious pearls, evoking sympathy. Stealing a glance at my grandparents, I noticed that despite their expressions remaining unchanged, they would steal glances at their weeping daughter. She pleaded, "Mom and Dad, it's all my fault. I have come to realize my mistakes. It was my folly to be so bewitched, allowing myself to be deceived by him at such a young age, shamelessly pursuing him abroad and bringing disgrace upon the Gu family. But Wanwan understands her errors now, and from this day forth, she will behave obediently at home and cause no trouble. Mom, could you please forgive Wanwan? If you do not, I shall kneel until you do." Though she had been adopted, she had been nurtured for over a decade. Seeing her in such distress, having visibly lost weight, broke the hearts of the elderly couple. Ultimately, Madame Gu feigned anger and reminded her, "We shall forgive you this once, but should you repeat such behavior, Your father and I will consider that we have never raised you and will sever our ties. Gu Wanwan immediately nodded, joyfully rising to embrace Gu Yanli. She exclaimed, Brother, we are finally a family again. But I must ask, is this truly acceptable? Gu Yanli, with a stern expression, promptly pushed her away, reminding her, Wanwan, you are no longer a child. We must maintain appropriate boundaries. Do not hug me so freely. Upon hearing this, her face fell instantly, and with a roll of her eyes, she retorted, Sister-in-law, you are rather stingy. My brother and I have always embraced each other since childhood. I feigned indifference, genuinely not angry. With my grandson returned, my son and daughter-in-law also back, and now even my daughter has returned, the elderly couple was overjoyed, insisting that they stay at home. By nightfall, Gu Yanli had consumed a considerable amount of alcohol. He was drunkenly assisted to his room. Before he could enter, I stood a short distance away, softly reminding him, Miss Gu, is it truly wise to bring your non-blood-related brother into your room? Gu Wanwan's expression froze as she turned to meet my gaze. I wore a serious face, having just coaxed my son to sleep. I wanted to caution Gu Yanli against drinking too much. Stepping out of the room, I spotted a certain figure behaving stealthily. Upon closer inspection, I couldn't help but find it amusing. Just as she was about to speak, Gu Yanli chimed in at the perfect moment. Wife, carry me to sleep. I smiled, observing the person before me, whose eyes had reddened from annoyance due to those words. My smile broadened as I extended my hand to assist Gu Yanli, not forgetting to say, all right, dear, your wife will carry you now. Behind us, Gu Wanwan's voice rang out in exasperation. Yi Jin Chao, can you not exhibit any decorum? If it weren't for you clinging to me, my brother would never have met you. I refrained from countering her. After all, she was quite right. At the age of 16, I found myself transported into this narrative. I was uncertain of my purpose, merely biding my time while observing the romantic entanglements of the protagonists. Until one day, I chanced upon Gu Yanli delivering homework to Gu Wanwan. Bathed in backlight, he donned a white shirt, with hair just above his brows, showcasing his alluring peach blossom eyes and charming dimples. My heart fluttered. I spent my days persistently delivering milk tea and snacks to the female lead. Occasionally, I would also catch glimpses of the female lead's brother, Gu Yanli, bringing breakfast, homework, and escorting her to school. I would seize the opportunity to hitch a ride, striving to establish my presence in the eyes of the devoted second male lead. The second male lead, having realized his feelings for his adopted sister were not merely familial, found himself at the age of 22 just as I was. I was pained by the thought of such a handsome and gentle character meeting a tragic end in a car accident while saving the female lead. Thus, I swiftly intervened, ensuring that his burgeoning feelings for the female lead were quashed before they could fully blossom. I ceased my pursuit of Gu Wanwan, boldly pursuing Gu Yanli instead. Initially, he was rather impatient with me, discarding the heartfelt breakfast and gifts I presented. However, the age-old adage that a girl chasing a boy is merely a veil proved true. In 3 months, I had carved out a place in his heart. Another 3 months passed, and he began to harbor thoughts of me that extended beyond mere friendship, while still playing matchmaker for the protagonists. 3 months later, I employed tactics of allure and retreat to elicit a confession from Gu Yanli. Throughout our courtship, I coaxed him tenderly, almost molding him into a compliant partner. By the age of 20, Gu Yanli successfully proposed, and we obtained our marriage certificate. At 21, we welcomed Gu Xiangxiang into the world. Over these years, I have truly grasped the essence of what it means to be with a deeply affectionate second male lead. The following morning, Gu Yanli, citing work, took me and our son back to his family home. Upon entering the bedroom, he was eager to complete what had been left unfinished the previous day. For hours later, I had completely succumbed to slumber. When I awoke, my phone was flooded with messages, all from a singular source. While I was not surprised by the influx of messages, I was taken aback by the sender. Gu Wanwan. Gone was her usual spoiled demeanor. She addressed me as sister-in-law, inquiring about my well-being, my meals, and my brother. The final question was the most pressing. Her brother? That scoundrel had taken a 2-hour break before happily returning to work. I yawned as I rose, heading to the children's room to find my obedient son diligently working on his homework, nodding with satisfaction. I, Yi Jin Chao, am indeed fortunate to have a considerate husband and a well-behaved son. Ah, this is true happiness. Xiangxiang looked up, caught my eye, called out Mom, then returned to his studies, muttering, Stinky Dad, he says we're going to see the aurora, but insists I finish my homework first. Exiting the children's room, I recalled Gu Wanwan's messages and dutifully replied with a simple one. Just as I set my phone down, I heard the sound of a car approaching.
I dashed over.
Planting a kiss on my husband's cheek while cheerfully saying, "Husband, welcome home after your hard day at work." To free up time, Gu Yanli busied himself as soon as he arrived at the office. Though weary, at that moment he felt an overwhelming sense of happiness. During lunch, he suddenly remembered tomorrow. "Why don't you and our son accompany me to the banquet celebrating the centenary of the Jiang Group?" I readily agreed. Gu Yanli had a concluding meeting. By the time we arrived at the banquet, it was already well underway. Upon spotting Gu Yanli, several partners approached to greet him. Throughout the years, I had attended my fair share of banquets, but this was a first for me as a participant. While others complimented my beauty as they always had, they immediately began to praise Xiang as well. Xiang blushed at the compliments. I smiled, but my gaze suddenly halted at a particular sight. Gu Wanwan, who stood amidst a group of men, laughing with abandon. I am acquainted with quite a number of young gentlemen, most of whom hail from esteemed families, while some are notorious playboys. Gu Yanli noticed my unease and followed my gaze, pausing for a moment upon spotting Gu Wanwan, yet he said nothing. It was only upon seeing an old friend that he turned his head slightly and whispered, "There's an old friend over there. I shall go greet them." I nodded in acknowledgement. President Jiang of the Jiang Group and Gu Yanli share a brotherly bond, and his wife and children are also familiar to me. Upon noticing me, Mrs. Jiang greeted me with excitement. "I thought you wouldn't come." I smiled and replied, "How could I not? I told you yesterday that I would be here." I nudged Xiang, reminding her, "Didn't you say you hadn't seen Lucky Sister in ages? Go play with her over there." Xiang nodded. Her cheeks flushed as she took Lucky Sister's hand. As soon as they departed, Mrs. Jiang immediately remarked, "ISN to your husband's sister someone who hasn't seen a man in ages?" I was perplexed by her words. She recounted the events leading up to the banquet. Gu Wanwan had come to represent her parents, yet upon entering, she seemed indifferent to the older attendees and rushed towards the wealthy young men, inciting disapproval from those present. I frowned. I had known her before, and this dramatic shift in her persona seemed rather excessive. Before I could ponder further, I suddenly spotted someone being obstructed at the entrance. As the host of the gathering, Mrs. Jiang instinctively moved to see what was amiss. I reached out to stop her, saying, "It's my friend. I'll check it out." I handed my juice to a server, and as I approached, I overheard a man's furious voice. "I've said it before, my wife is inside. I must go in. Let me through." Having been blocked for too long, he was becoming agitated and appeared ready to resort to violence. I furrowed my brow and spoke. "Young Master Shen, what are you doing here?" The one being thwarted was Shen Xiaoqing, a former classmate, and along with Gu Wanwan, we shared numerous interactions. Upon seeing me, he looked as though he had found hope. I explained to the staff, "I apologize. This gentleman is my friend and has already spoken with Mrs. Jiang." Recognizing me, the staff relaxed their grip. Shen Xiaoqing immediately attempted to rush inside, but I quickly intercepted him, saying, "Young Master Shen, today's gathering is hosted by my friend, and I do not wish for you to cause a scene here. Any matters can be discussed after the event." Furthermore, I couldn't help but inquire, "What exactly transpired between you and Wanwan?" My curiosity piqued, especially with the event nearing its conclusion, and yet so much commotion arising. Upon mentioning Gu Wanwan, his expression shifted to one of anger, embarrassment, and guilt. I found a quiet spot, as we had known each other for nearly a decade, and being, in name at least, Gu Wanwan's sister-in-law, he felt at ease to confide in me. "Actually, Wanwan was in a car accident 2 months ago," he revealed. I nodded in understanding. The book did mention an accident, and it was through this incident that they realized their dependence on one another, ultimately leading to the elevation of their love. He continued, "It was because of that accident that we recognized we couldn't live without each other. We quickly obtained our marriage license and held a wedding a month ago. However, 2 weeks ago, Wanwan suddenly began throwing tantrums, complaining about the environment and the food being unpalatable. I changed several housekeepers, but she continued to express her dissatisfaction. I knew she was upset with me for not spending enough time with her." He sighed. "During this period, I happened to be at a peak in my career, intending to dedicate my time to her once I finished my work. But when I returned home, all her belongings were gone, and she had vanished. I was fortunate enough to find her at a hotel, only for her to disappear again. I heard she was attending this banquet, which is why I wanted to come see her." He spoke with a heavy heart, lowering his head in self-reproach. "It's all my fault. I lack the means to provide for Wanwan, a young lady of privilege. I listened quietly, pondering the scene of Gu Wanwan at the banquet, unsure of how to respond. Shen Xiaoqing, unlike Gu Yanli, lacked familial support. He had built his success from the ground up, and achieving such accomplishments at his age was commendable. In the original text, Gu Wanwan had never looked down upon Shen Xiaoqing for his earlier financial struggles. He raised his head, hesitating to speak, but eventually said, "On that day at the hotel, my company called with urgent news. I had planned for both of us to take some time apart, but when I returned home today, I discovered a pregnancy test in the bathroom. Wanwan is pregnant." What? I was taken aback. This completely exceeded the narrative. Sister-in-law. It was always my fault for being too busy with work and neglecting her. I realized my mistakes. Could you please let Wanwan see me? I want to explain things to her in person. She has blocked me and even sent me a divorce agreement. When Gu Yanli found me, I was too stunned to speak, my thoughts swirling as I gazed at him, ultimately unable to contain myself. Such news would not remain hidden from the Gu family. The moment Gu Wanwan returned home, her parents reprimanded her sharply, leading her to tremble in fear and kneel, utterly bewildered by the situation. Her mother wasted no time. "Gu Wanwan, are you pregnant? Don't deny it. I've already confirmed with the hospital that you are a month and a half along." Gu Wanwan's eyes widened in shock, completely at a loss as to how they had discovered this, and she turned to see me in the corner, immediately rising to grasp my arm, only to be thwarted by Gu Yanli. She erupted, "You shameless harlot. You must have said something to my mother. You bring misfortune. You wretched woman." Her harsh words were met with a swift slap. The man, with a stern expression and clenched fists, demanded, "Gu Wanwan, have you had enough of this?" It was Gu Yanli, his face darkened with disappointment and frustration. Gu Wanwan froze in place. Throughout her life, her brother had never laid a hand on her. Even when she had threatened to sever ties with their parents, he had merely spoken harshly. Now, for just a few words directed at this woman. Her beloved brother had struck her. Tears welled in her eyes as she felt wronged and attempted to speak. Her father, infuriated, questioned, "You used to be so desperate to be with Shen Xiaoqing, and now that you've achieved your wish and are expecting a child, what on earth is this commotion about? You're an adult now. Can't you act a bit more sensibly?" Her mother, being a mother, naturally felt joy upon learning of her daughter's pregnancy, but upon hearing of the divorce, it was impossible not to feel anger. She suppressed her emotions and patiently asked, "Wanwan, please tell me why you want to divorce Xiaoqing. Did he do something to betray you? Or is it something else?" Although we were initially dissatisfied with him, over the years, he has consistently sent gifts to our family during holidays, and he personally invited us to your wedding. Both your father and I can see that he is of good character, so what is the reason? Gu Wanwan covered half of her face, shouting in fury, "Are you my parents or Shen Xiaoqing's parents?" Before either could respond, she continued in exasperation, "So what if I'm pregnant? I never said I was going to keep this child." With that, she received another harsh slap. Her father, beside himself with rage, clutched his chest and pointed towards the door, cursing, "Get out. You get out of here. The Gu family has no daughter, like you, who lacks self-respect. Get out." The events at the banquet had already been the talk of the town, and the elders were incensed about it. Now, with this new incident, their anger was reignited. Gu Wanwan stood frozen in shock, tears streaming down her face as she declared, "If you want me to go, then I will." With that, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the Gu residence. After a lengthy period of attempting to placate the elders, they finally calmed down, their tempers subsiding. It was clear they were merely reacting in the heat of the moment. As Gu Wanwan exited, Gu Yanli sent her a message instructing her to wait outside. Thus, upon leaving the Gu family home, she spotted her brother waiting for her just outside. The moment she laid eyes on him, she cried out and rushed forward for an embrace, only to instantly darken her expression upon seeing me. "What are you doing here? Are you here to gloat?" she snapped. I waved my hand dismissively, replying, "No, I have no interest in such mockery." Though I was unaware of the specifics of their quarrel, I had no desire to involve myself in her affairs, especially since the elders were her adoptive parents and Gu Yanli's biological ones, my in-laws. Gu Yanli then sought refuge in a hotel, all the while lecturing her. "Wanwan, you are not a child anymore. I wanted to speak to you at the banquet. Among those young masters, there are several notorious playboys. Standing with them will tarnish your reputation. I do not comprehend what transpired between you and Shen Xiaoqing. But you are now an adult and must take responsibility for your actions, rather than running to others like you did in your youth. Though I am your brother, I cannot care for you forever." He spoke at length, yet Gu Wanwan remained silent, and it was uncertain whether she absorbed any of his words. Upon arriving at the hotel, she stormed in, cutting off any further comments from Gu Yanli. Just as they entered, a figure rushed forward and enveloped Gu Wanwan in an embrace. I instinctively attempted to intervene, but the man beside me held me back. It was then I recognized the newcomer as Shen Xiaoqing. Gu Wanwan gasped in fright, but upon hearing his voice, her face hardened. "Let go of me. Release me." Shen Xiaoqing, terrified of losing her again, refused to relinquish his grip and kept apologizing. "I'm sorry, Wanwan, it's all my fault. I couldn't provide you with the life you deserve. But trust me, I will soon offer you the life you desire. Please don't leave me. A child cannot grow up without a father." As he continued his apologies, the woman he held suddenly laughed mockingly. Shen Xiaoqing gradually loosened his hold, allowing Gu Wanwan to escape, and she promptly slapped him across the face, sneering. "How long must I wait? 5 years? 10? 20? Why should I sacrifice my present for an uncertain future? Shen Xiaoqing, I once loved you, but what are you worth? What gives you the right to expect me to abandon the affluent and powerful Gu family for you? And as for the child you mentioned, I terminated the pregnancy long ago. We have no child between us." As she spoke, she pulled out an abortion report from her bag and flung it at his face. Fearing that her pregnancy would be discovered, she had hastily changed hospitals to undergo the procedure. The revelation left everyone, including me, in a state of shock. I glanced at Gu Yanli, who maintained an inscrutable expression as if he had anticipated this all along. Shen Xiaoqing, unwilling to accept the truth, scrutinized the report repeatedly until he finally grasped that the child had indeed been aborted. In a fit of rage, he seized her by the neck, demanding why. "Why would you do this? How could you terminate our child without consulting me? Gu Wanwan, what gives you the right to make such a unilateral decision?" The mounting pressure from work, coupled with her abrupt demeanor, left him breathless. But now, he need no longer fear suffocation. At that moment, it seemed that even the meaning of his existence had dissipated. She was nearly asphyxiated when Gu Yanli intervened just in time. Once released, Gu Wanwan laughed hysterically, though her laughter soon turned to tears. "Why? If you must blame someone, blame that car accident. It revealed to me the life that awaited us. I would have to endure 5 long years before achieving the luxurious existence of Yi Jinchao. I refuse to live a life inferior to that of a mere supporting character. So, whether you hate or love me, I no longer care." My eyes widened in disbelief. Was this a moment of awakening? The farcical scene ultimately concluded with the arrival of the police. Someone had witnessed Shen Xiaoqing assaulting Gu Wanwan and promptly reported it, claiming there was an attempted murder. Perhaps due to lingering memories of their inconsequential friendship, Gu Wanwan merely stated that it was a minor conflict between spouses. Nevertheless, Shen Xiaoqing was still detained for 15 days. During his time in prison, he signed the divorce papers Gu Wanwan had submitted multiple times, yet he could not come to terms with it. On the day of his release, I stood at the prison gate and handed him a letter, stating, "Gu Wanwan has already gone abroad. This letter is from her. Perhaps you were never suited for one another. Forcing a union will not yield happiness, and this separation may be for the best. Shen Xiaoqing, you are truly remarkable, having built such an impressive empire on your own, so do not belittle yourself. Keep pushing forward. Your life is long, and you will encounter many people and experiences. Wanwan will only be a fleeting presence in your journey. In truth, they were never meant to be. Their mismatch was apparent from the start, which explained their nearly decade-long entanglement. They were still young, and parting ways sooner rather than later would allow each to pursue their own paths." I was uncertain whether he absorbed my words, but a man in the car cast several impatient glances in my direction. I ultimately smiled and bid him farewell, leaving without looking back, for this would not be our final encounter. The day before witnessing the aurora, Gu Yanli persistently requested my attention. He repeatedly expressed jealousy over my cheerful farewell to Shen Xiaoqing, lamenting that I had never smiled so tenderly at him. I felt both exasperated and amused, ultimately indulging him. We rose early to catch our flight. However, as I entered the children's room to wake Xiangxiang, I discovered a small notebook peeking out from beneath his pillow, inscribed with the words, "After the redemption story, my 5-year-old son says he has been reborn," along with the whimsical signature of Little Luck. I kissed his cheek affectionately and gently urged him, "Xiangxiang, it's time to get up and see the aurora." Outside the door, Gu Yanli leaned against the frame, observing the tender scene of me kissing our son with a soft, carefree smile. Little did anyone know that he, too, had awakened to the script of the devoted second male lead. He understood clearly that his love for Zhao Zhao had saved him, granting his life a sense of fulfillment. The end of the story. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please remember to like and subscribe. Until we meet again in the next tale.